Free will has been a long-standing debate amongst philosophers and scientists. Recent studies in neuroscience and physics have taken the argument under their wing. However, there haven't been any definitive studies that settle the discussion. There are several theories of determinism that have been presented to show that we don't have as much control over our actions as we may have thought. Two forms that I will be discussing are physical and psychological determinism. Physical determinism is the idea that the laws of physics and a complete description of the current state of the universe allow for all future events to be predicted. Since the laws of physics can't be broken, then everything is already determined to happen by cause and effect. In other words, the universe is like a set of dominoes that is falling on each other in consequential order, except that it is happening at an infinitely larger and more complex scale. Another form of determinism that has grown more popular in light of new findings in behavioral psychology is psychological determinism. This theory of determinism posits that a person's behavior can be attributed to various psychological and neurological functionings rather than their conscious will. This theory of determinism makes you question where your many behaviors and actions come from. Are they all a product of your conditioning and your genetics? Elizabeth Loftus performed a study where she asked people to watch a video of a car accident. Then she asked them to report how fast they thought the cars were moving. She phrased the question differently for each participant by only changing the word that referenced the impact of the two cars. She noticed that when the question used the word smashed instead of other words like hit or collision, the subjects reported that the cars were moving a lot faster. In other words, she noticed that the words had a strong power to sway people's minds. This study helps to shine light on the fact that many of our decisions and behaviors can be drawn to clear psychological mechanisms. Various other experiments and research have been performed in order to solve the question of free will. Benjamin Libet was in charge of one of the most famous free will studies where he claimed that he was able to show that your brain creates your decision to act before you are consciously aware of the decision to act. The idea of readiness potential was created by Kornhuber and Dieck. They discovered that the brain underwent an increase in electrical activity before the movement of a finger. Libet took up the project of trying to find if the conscious intention of a subject initiated the readiness potential or if the readiness potential existed before the conscious intention. The image here shows the results of the experiment very well. 1,000 milliseconds before the movement, the brain has made a pre-plan to move the finger. 500 milliseconds before the action, the brain has now initiated the act to move the finger. The person consciously is aware of their intention to move the finger 200 milliseconds before the movement of the finger. This image is supposed to show that the brain activity to move the finger was happening long before the person was aware of their decision to move the finger. Libet thought that this proved that our brain is creating actions before we are aware of them. However, he did not think that humans were completely exempt from freedom of will. He believed that between the conscious wish of an action and the actual action, a person had the decision to not do an action. In other words, humans don't have free will, but they do have free want. This experiment has been met with many points of skepticism. The subject is being asked to look at a timer and observe the exact moment that they make the decision to move. There are many things being asked of the subject, and the reliability of the reports stands as a problem in this experiment. It's possible that there is a delay between when a decision is made and when a decision is reported to be made. If you observe your own mind, it's very hard to determine at which exact moment you make the decision to do something. Additionally, people have been skeptical of Libet's claims about free will. Libet claimed that his study proved the brain made the decision before the person was aware of it. But wouldn't Libet's idea of free will be just as deterministically caused by the brain as any other decision? Clearly, Libet's study possesses some holes, and evidently, this is why people are hesitant to accept it as clear evidence against free will. Another factor that is relevant to the free will question is the idea of responsibility. Two scientists, Laura Clamming and Pim Haselager, wanted to advance the discussion of responsibility when it came to deep brain stimulation. DBS has been shown to cause symptomatic relief for people with diseases like Parkinson's disease. However, it has been shown to have negative effects like aggressiveness and sexual behavior. Medication and treatments that directly involve the brain have been known to cause unwanted side effects for a long time. In 1998, a 65-year-old man who showed no prior signs of violent behavior was prescribed an antidepressant to treat his severe depression and anxiety. 2 days later, he murdered his wife, daughter, and granddaughter, and then took his own life. As horrible as this case is, it puts into question whether or not this man is responsible for his actions or whether the medication was responsible for his actions. DBS has also shown to influence psychological functioning. A 62-year-old man developed a manic disorder after receiving DBS. His judgment was impaired, which consequently influenced his behavior. But once DBS was turned off, he returned to his prior mental state. A decision then had to be made. Should he receive the DBS and live with the psychological impacts, or not receive DBS and live with the physical symptoms of the Parkinson's disease? Klayman and Haselager posited that since DBS can change a person's identity, many ethical questions of whether or not a person is responsible for their actions are brought into the question. Should these people be liable for their actions after treatment? When it comes to questions of responsibility, one's outlook on the question of free will is vitally important. There are three main camps that each take on the problem of free will and determinism differently. Incompatibilism, also known as libertarianism, hard determinism, and compatibilism, also known as soft determinism. Let's take a look at how each of these views differ from each other and how they impact our idea of responsibility. Incompatibilists think that free will is incompatible with determinism. However, they say that determinism is false, and therefore we are free and responsible for our moral actions. Compatibilists say that free will and determinism are compatible. People can be free and responsible for their actions. Free will consists in doing what you want for your own reasons. Hard determinists say that free will is incompatible with determinism, just like incompatibilists. However, they say that determinism is true. Our sense of free will is an illusion, and therefore nobody is morally responsible, but we can still hold people accountable. Dirk Pereboom stands for this type of determinism, and he argues that if this view of free will is right, it would have practical consequences in our ethical lives. The way that we deal with criminals would insist on being changed because we currently believe that people should be blamed and condemned for their actions. Pereboom offers that criminals deserve sympathy because they are not the sole chooser of their actions. He thinks that rehabilitation should be the mode of disciplinary action for criminals. There are some instances where criminals are such a threat to society that Pereboom still believes they should be incarcerated. I personally am in agreement with Pereboom. I do not believe that free will stands the test of inquiry and reason. In fact, although the neuroscience and physics research that has tried to solve this question is interesting, I think that this question is solvable through inquiry and discussion alone. A popular objection to physical determinism is that there exists a degree of randomness in the universe. The laws of physics present us with a picture of the physical world, but the quantum realm behaves in a different fashion. If physics proves that the electron appears and disappears randomly, then this would put physical determinism into question. This discovery could prove that the future events of the universe are completely unpredictable because randomization exists at the quantum level. Although this discovery could prove the false reality of determinism, I don't think it proves that free will doesn't exist. This still doesn't solve the problem that we, as the subjective experience of our lives, really have no idea where our thoughts and decisions are coming from. Where could thoughts and decisions come from other than genetics, childhood, life experiences, and all the many other factors that influence our actions? All of these things are things that we did not choose when we arrived on this earth. I think that many objections that are raised to determinism are really people just scared to accept its reality. However, I think the shift in our outlook on free will could be a major turning point in the human race. Free will has long been an interest of mine. I remember thinking as a kid that it seems unfair that some people are born into environments surrounded with crime and murder, and then when they repeat those actions, they are sent to prison for life. We currently view people as agents that act with a conscious intention and therefore as being morally responsible for their actions. With free will not in the picture, I don't find it possible to hold people responsible for their moral wrongdoings. This does not mean that we can't try and cultivate a moral structure into our society. I think that if we stop viewing people as agents of their actions, then we open the door to a vast room of compassion. Imagine someone that is born immediately into a world of chaos and instability. Their parents are overwhelmed with things in their own life and don't give them the moral and ethical foundation that we so hope to see given to children. Maybe this child grows up to do some really harmful things to other people. But if we turn back the clock, we can see that this person wasn't given the necessary tools to develop a healthy sense of self and a moral compass. At 5 years old, what other attitude is right to give this person other than compassion? And at what age is compassion no longer the right attitude to give this person? I think this fundamental shift in our thinking is one that we will eventually have to make as a species. Thanks for tuning in.